By the Treaty of Peace with Great Britain in 1783, the country northwest of the Ohio River was declared to be a part of the territory of the United States. Yet it was many years before the Americans had anything more than a nominal control of Wisconsin, which was a part of this northwestern region. The United States were at first unable to meet all of their obligations under this treaty, hence Great Britain kept possession of the old fur trade posts on the Upper Lakes, including Mackinac, of which Wisconsin was a dependency. A British garrison was kept at the Straits, thus controlling the fur trade of this district, but no troops were deemed necessary within Wisconsin itself. In 1780, an English fur trader named John Long passed up the Fox River and down the Wisconsin, and bought up a great many furs in this region. Some years later, he wrote a book about his travels, and from this we get a very good idea of life among the French and the original inhabitants of the Northwest. Long was at Green Bay for several days, and tells us that the houses there were covered with birch bark, and the rooms were decorated with bows and arrows, guns and spears. There were in the village not over 50 whites divided into 6 or 7 families. The men were for the most part engaged as assistants to the 2 or 3 leading traders. They spent their winters in the woods, picking up furs at the Aboriginal camps, and in summer cultivated their narrow strips of gardens which ran down to the river's edge. To this primitive community there came one day in 1803 a portly, pompous, bald-headed little Frenchman named Charles Réaume. Wisconsin was then a part of Indiana Territory, of which William Henry Harrison was governor. It was for the most part a wilderness. Dense woods and tenantless prairies extended all the way from the narrow clearing at Green Bay to the little settlement at Prairie du Chien. The judge was a good-hearted man when one penetrated beneath the crust of official pomposity with which he was generally enveloped. He owned a volume of Blackstone, but the only law he understood or practiced was the old law of Paris, which had governed Canada from the earliest time. And it is related that he knew little of that. His decisions were arbitrary, but were generally based on the right as he saw it, regardless of the technicalities of the law. A great many stories are told of Judge Réaume. He loved display after his simple fashion and invented for himself an official uniform. This consisted of a scarlet frock coat faced with white silk with spangled buttons. He issued few warrants or subpoenas. It is told of him that whenever he wanted a person to appear before him, either as witness or principal, he sent to that person the constable, bearing his honour's well-known large jackknife, which was quite as effectual as the king's signet ring of olden days. Quite often did he adjudge guilty both complainant and defendant, obliging them both to pay a fine or to work so many days in his garden, and sometimes both were acquitted, the constable being ordered to pay the costs. It is even said that the present of a bottle of whiskey to the judge was sufficient to ensure a favourable decision. The story is told that once, when the judge had actually rendered a decision in a certain case, the person decided against presented the court with a new coffee pot, whereupon the judgment was reversed. There may be some exaggeration in these tales of the earliest judge in Wisconsin, but they appear to be in the main substantiated. Nevertheless, although there doubtless was some grumbling, it speaks well for the old justice of the peace and for the orderly good nature of this little French community without a jail, that no one appears ever to have questioned the legality of Réaume's decisions. These were strictly abided by, and although he was never reappointed, he held office under both American and British sway, simply because no one was sent to succeed him. Not only was Réaume Wisconsin's judge and jury during the first 2 decades of the 19th century, but as there was during much of his time, no priest hereabouts, he drew up marriage contracts and married and divorced people at will, issued baptismal certificates, and kept a registry of births and deaths. He certified alike to British and American military commissions, drew up contracts between the fur traders and their employees, wrote letters for the habitants, and performed for the settlers all those functions of church and state, for which we now require a long list of officials and professionals. He was a picturesque and important functionary, illustrating in his person the simple fashions and modest desires of the French who first settled this fine American state. They are now wealthier people, But certainly there have never been happier times in Wisconsin, all things considered, than in the primitive days of old Judge Réaume and his official jackknife.